Okay, great. So my next question for the last question for the optics is the belt system. There's really no other profession that humans do that requires them to wear a belt to show rank, to show improvement or progress, or anything like that. And the martial arts is still the only thing that, like in basketball, there's no discernible thing that shows their level or their progress, or football or soccer. They're not wearing any, you just see that they're good. You know they're good because they're playing professionally or they're playing at a certain level, but but they're not wearing anything that shows that I'm this good, right? So what we've seen so far across our travels is how misused and abused the belt system has gotten. And what I mean by that is just because people show up, and I mean kids and adults now, just because these people show up for class, they're getting stripes on their belts, they're getting ranked, they're moving through the system with very little effort and discipline. And I'm wondering, what's going on, because I'm thinking to myself, I had to work really hard to get my rank. I had to really put the work and the time in. I couldn't, it was not an easy process.
Right.
And I appreciated my rank when I finally got it, my black belt, and then my first and second and third and fourth degrees. And when people watch me train and move and teach, they know that I'm that level. They can see it. I don't have to wear it anymore. But anyway, I'm kind of digressing here. But do you have any comments on the belt system in your experience and where it's gone today?
Yeah, for traditional martial arts, and that's what I did and taught, to me, the belt system was very important.
Okay.
And I felt, and what we practiced in my school was you had to earn your belt. You
Okay.
did not earn your belt just by showing up. If you didn't train sufficiently and didn't have the skill to do what we required people to do to move to the next belt level.
Right.
And because of that, I also occasionally lost students.
Okay.
I had moms tell me, well, if my son or my daughter doesn't get to test for her belt next time, then she'll quit. And I would tell them that's not how we run our schools.
Okay.
So I had adults unhappy with me because they didn't test for their next black belt when they thought they should.
Yeah.
But to me, that was very important, and that goes back to preserving the standards of the art.
Right.
So in that way, that school, that training that I did, was focused more on the preservation of the art and the quality standards of the art.
Okay.
And less on the feelings of these particular students. It's very different with self-defense now.
Right.
With self-defense, to me, standards are very important too, but my standard with self-defense training is I need to meet the standard of providing the best service to this particular person, to give him or her options that they can use and that have a high likelihood of being successful in protecting them.
Right.
So
right.
That's the standard. There
Okay.
should also be standards.
Yeah, because
But
I
more
do.
for the instructors.
Yeah.
Doing the assessment with the clients constantly.
Right.
As we train, what works, what doesn't work, what is this person capable of,
Right.
physically and mentally and emotionally.
Right.
Somebody may physically be capable to do certain strikes or certain moves, but you need to assess, will this person do this?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Based on their their psychological and their mental and emotional makeup.
Right. I definitely agree with that. What was your question?
Oh, I was, do you ever feel sad or disappointed when you see like a belt factory and you have like a 7-year-old black belt? And
And I'm glad that she asked that question.
does that make you
Yes.
just feel really awful inside? Like, I worked really hard for that, and I feel like the standards. So, like, does that make you feel like your black belt is worthless now, or loses its value in comparison? Because people will equate that to, you know, where you were.
It doesn't make me feel that my black belt is worthless.
Okay.
But it makes me cringe. It makes me feel disgusted.
Right.
Because that's the belt factory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they may do very good business.
Right, absolutely.
But and you know, I have to be honest with myself. So they do something different. Maybe they make little Johnny feel good.
Sure.
Because he has a blue belt now.
Mm-hmm.
When in my school, maybe he'd have his yellow stripe if he's lucky. So maybe they do some good for some people.
Right.
So I need to sit back but my reaction is,
right,
you're doing something different.
Very different. I agree with that. I'm glad she brought that up, because something that I've thought about for a long time, because I was a gymnastics coach for 20 years. And, you know, the kids never had to wear anything, like I said before, that discerned them, that differentiated them in level. You just knew that they were that level. Like a level 7 was not the same as a level 2.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there was a difference in age, but other than that, you could physically see the difference in level. You didn't have to see anything being worn. And so I'm glad that Casey brought that up, because do you feel that we are operating in an industry called martial arts and self-defense, where everyone can do whatever they want with the standards? Like, what I mean by that is, you could have like 5 schools in one area, and you could see 5 different standards, and how that's actually not a good thing. I mean, it's a good thing because everyone gets to operate in their own way, I guess, and everyone gets to do their own thing their own way, and I guess that's good. But it's bad because for the public, the standards are so erratic. And it's like, well, you don't know what you're going to get. You got this guy over here has a belt system that goes to black belt, but then so does this guy. Right. But then this guy over here, his standards are much higher. But then this guy over here on the other end of the road, his standards are lower. Right. So it's like the belts don't matter as much as the standards. Would you agree with that? Yeah. The standards are definitely more important than the belt. So it's like I could start somebody off and give them a black belt on their first day, but because I'm demonstrating my standard. So it kind of takes away from, well, it doesn't matter what color it is anymore. It doesn't matter, because you can reverse the belt system and say, well, we're going to start from black and go to white. Because we have that freedom, and I feel like that maybe the fact that we have too much freedom is ruining the quality of martial arts training. Would you know? Yeah,
I think that's can be true.
Okay.
I guess the question is, who would regulate? How would you regulate?
Yeah, because I'm not a big fan of making it a regulatory thing.
I think it's more educating the public on check different schools out.
Okay.
See what they ask these questions.
Right.
On what factors do you take into account when you promote?
Right.
What does one need to do in order to qualify for a black belt test or a black belt candidate test? We always had the candidate test and then the actual test. So find out what the philosophy is.
Right. I guess it goes back to what you said earlier about the honesty of what your school is, and if the public could just understand that a black belt doesn't mean that you're now immune to an assault of some kind, or that you're now ready to fight Jackie Chan. Or,
yeah, exactly.
And that's especially true with black belts.
Yeah.
I feel like what does your black belt actually mean?
Right.
I had a person ask me a few weeks ago, saying this young kid they knew went to a competition, and he was actually had points subtracted because he wasn't aggressively fighting. And he said, could you train with him? And I suppose he meant, could I make him more aggressive?
Okay.
So that he actually participates in the fight.
Okay.
And he asked, well, what do you do with your self-defense students? And I said, well, when we get to that stage where a counterattack is the best option, we do train on how do you switch from being a peaceful, civilized person to becoming committed, 100% committed to counterattacking and becoming aggressive. So we do have specific drills and training that's geared towards building this aggression.
Right.
But I said, if this guy's in a martial arts school right now, I would wonder whether
she's so diplomatic. I love it.
Whether how his instructor would feel about his Tommy going to Brigitte to train how to be aggressive.
That's right.
He's teaching this traditional.
And so now we're talking about the quality of instruction. Now we're talking about the standards of the instructor.
Yeah.
Because the standards of instruction and the quality of instruction are many times not the same as the standards and quality of learning of the student.
Yeah.
And we found that across the country too. We're like, well, you could see a group of students who are very high quality students. They have good attention spans, they're very disciplined, they're high quality. They're ready to learn. But then the instructor is very low quality. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, what's the result of that going to be? Right. And then, of course, you've got the opposite where you're like, the instructor is extremely qualified. He or she is very, very qualified, experienced, and all this other stuff. And the standards are very high. But then their clientele, there's not a good pairing.
There's not a good fit.
Yeah. And so that's another thing that we've been noticing across the board is this very erratic sort of observation of standards. Mm-hmm. And I can see now why maybe martial arts is not where it's supposed to be or where it could be, because the standards are so all over the place. And like
instructors are lacking the education on education.
Because they're just teaching really what they were taught.
And proficient at what they do, but they don't understand different learning styles.
That's right.
And the needs of their
That's
students.
right.
Yeah, different learning styles. And also some basic background in fitness, for example, and flexibility and balance and periodization of training. And, But I also think, again, people need to be honest in what they actually teach, what their school's mission is, what their school's purpose is, what the background is of the instructors, and differentiate between martial arts and self-defense.
Okay.
And if they do want to teach self-defense, then don't be so insular. Don't isolate yourself. I was training, for example, it was Harinder Singh at the last martial arts super show. And it was so refreshing to have a person who is very high caliber and who is very much an internal student who teaches and trains in different disciplines and doesn't just stick to one art.
Right.
And there's certainly a room for that too, to stick to your one art, preserve that art, be the best in that art. But you're probably not the best person to teach someone self-defense.
Probably not. I would agree to that. Yeah, because if you're a well-rounded martial artist, and if you've done different disciplines in all the different ranges, your understanding is going to be higher.
Yeah.
It's going to be more. It's going to be deeper. You're going to have a more depth of understanding of movement.
And there's also, I think, just basic honesty about what self-defense is.
Yeah.
Because generally it's not pretty.
No.
It doesn't look like an art.
Right.
And, somebody who has no training at all may be a much better attacker than you are.
Yeah.
With all your belts
right.
and skills and training.
Right.
Because they grab a rock and or a 2x4 and hit you over the head.
Yeah.